Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 110, How Making Small Daily Choices Can Create Big Life Changes. So if you've been with us this month, you know that we've been focusing on one of my favorite topics, being in a place of choice, owning our choices, why sometimes that's not so easy, and yet the benefits of every day trying to keep ourselves intentionally choosing. So I want to finish up the month by focusing this week on exactly how all those seemingly insignificant small daily choices can eventually bring about big changes in your life, even if you can't see how that is possible when you start out. So I think we watch too many movies, right? And we think about all of the big, epic changes that people make, the big gestures, the big 180s that happen, the big makeovers. And yes, they're important, but I think some of the misperceptions around creating change and reaching our goals is that it's the grand sweeping gestures that are the only way to create big changes. Like having $1 million, yeah, you can buy a nicer home immediately in a better neighborhood, and that's wonderful. That will greatly impact your life. But then remember, outside of winning a lottery or an instant inheritance, that million was made $1 at a time at some point, literally. Someone had to work, someone had to save a little bit at a time, usually not all at once. And that's important. I want you to think of origins of things today as we go through this episode. Another misperception is that you'll never be able to see the fruit of such small changes. Like writing in the sand, the water's just going to wash it away. Those small changes are just a drop in the ocean. They're not going to matter. It's not going to make a big enough difference, is what I've heard clients say. But this is what gets us into trouble in the first place. Because conversely, we think the same thing about those little bad habits that we have. That one more cupcake won't matter. It's just one cupcake. It's just one French fry. But if we do that several times a day, times days per week, times weeks per year, well, guess what? What we do know, those pounds will go on or back on. So the system works. It either works to our disservice or we can make it work in our favor. And that's why I think there's so much power in becoming aware of what we're choosing already and then intentionally making better small choices. Another big misperception that we have is that you need to do it perfectly or don't do it at all, which keeps us from getting started and keeps us from maintaining, I think. I don't think that's true unless you're getting sober and need abstinence, of course. Or maybe you're highly allergic to a certain food and need to never eat it. I get that. Those are the exceptional circumstances. Otherwise, I think we can create change by just doing the new behavior more often than not. Take the stairs more often than not this week. Maybe sometimes you take the elevator and that's okay. It's not all or nothing. And I really like that. And I've talked about this concept before. I like it because you can have a bad day and you can start over that afternoon. You can make small changes where some weeks are better than others and you do more of that change this week than next week, but then you pick it back up the week following. In other words, it doesn't wipe out all the progress you've made so far. And I think that's really great because a lot of times when we're caught up in perfectionism, caught up in black and white thinking, perfect or horrible, either I do it perfectly or I fail, it makes it hard because that's not realistic and it's not reality. reality is we're not going to do anything perfectly, perhaps. And if we really want to get to our goal, we need to just keep at it. You fall down, you get back up. You do it better tomorrow. Who cares? Today you have more energy to do it. Today you have more willpower to say no to the donut. Okay. Maybe yesterday you didn't, and that was okay. Compassion, self-forgiveness, context. We can't shame ourselves into being motivated. We know that. So those are some common misperceptions. You may have different ones of your own, and I want you to kind of think about that today. What did you learn, quote unquote, over the years that may keep you from thinking that just beginning and starting small would matter? What I know is true, that it's the unconscious stuff that hurts our life. It's, I think, our blindness to our own disorganization, our habits that we never even notice or think about anymore. So we don't pay too much attention to them until they accumulate, until our cholesterol gets bad, until we put on weight, until we don't have money and there's an emergency. It's about not being mindful is how we got here. But what's really neat is then being mindful, not OCD, by the way, those of you out there, but being mindful and aware is going to be the way we get there. There meaning where you want to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Here's the thing, what we know is habits are going to be there no matter what. Bad habits will accumulate. We know that. Well, wait a minute, the math still works. Therefore, your healthy ones will accumulate too. Sit with that for a moment. The problem has already been solved. Things also compound. Money earns interest. So time is on our side. Building better muscle tone helps you burn more calories, helps you be healthier and age better. Better nutrition helps fight disease over time. And cleaning one room motivates you to clean the next. So we're going with facts and we're going with what's already true. And all we're talking about today is making it work in your favor. So how do you start? Because I think immobilization is a big problem that a lot of people are embarrassed to admit, but I hear a lot of it from my clients. They feel so overwhelmed, they don't even know where to start. The problem has gotten so bad. They've become so unhealthy. The house is such a mess. They're so much in debt. The relationships are really in disrepair. So how do you begin? First, and you've probably heard this before, I'm sure, write down the end goal. What is that big thing you want to accomplish? You want to make happen? You want to create? And think about why it's a goal for you. And you probably already have these answers. How would that feel? How would that make you be more true to self? How would that change your life? I want you just to envision yourself having completed that goal already. And soak that in for a moment. And keep your eyes on that when you feel frustrated and want to throw your hands up. Remember the quote, obstacles are what I see when I take my eyes off the goal. So you write down your big end goal. Then you obviously chunk it down, work backwards from the big goal. Then you break that down into monthly chunks, let's say. I mean, every situation's different. You have to figure out the time segments that make most sense for you. But let's just, to keep it simple, let's break it down to monthly chunks. For example, if you want to save $5,000 by the end of the year, that would mean you'd need to sock away about $417 a month. So let's assume you get paid every 2 weeks or so. Then you would need to set aside $208.50 per paycheck. You would need to figure out what needs to go in terms of spending in order to do that. Less eating out maybe less browsing Amazon, maybe selling some stuff in your garage you no longer need. Some people get a temporary second job just to meet their goal. so they don't put strain on their budget. So figure that out. What does that look like? So we're down to the week. Now get down to the day. Make a daily plan. So if you have to accomplish something or you want to accomplish something every week, which adds up to every month, which adds up to the end of the year, what do you need to do every day to make that happen? Maybe you're not spending as much each day. Maybe you're choosing to go through the garage a couple times this week to set aside things that you want to sell. Maybe instead of getting on Amazon, you clean the living room. Maybe it's something like waking up earlier, eating less carbs 3 days per week, walking more each day, even a little bit more adds up. Maybe some longer workouts, maybe taking the stairs at work, maybe cutting back on hitting the drive-thru or the coffee shop, doing breathing exercises 3 times a day, practicing saying thank you to your family and friends or people that open the door for you. Practicing being vulnerable at least once a day and making it a fun challenge to see how you can do it, how creative you can be, and how brave you can be. Saying things like, I'm really scared, or I'm really mad at myself, or I notice you've been working on lately, or I love how we... Those are vulnerable statements that take courage, but what we do know that with anything, but especially personal growth change in terms of how we reveal ourselves, desensitization is key. You do a little bit at a time, you share more and more and more as you go through the month, then it becomes over time more normal for you to do that. And you're going to get better at it, and it's going to feel less awkward and scary. And you're going to get good feedback from healthy people, which empowers you and compounds it, compounds the motivation to want to keep doing it. It feeds upon itself in a good way. So bring it down to the daily habits that you just want to start practicing. And I would dare say experiment. I mean, we have to try some stuff first, play it out for a couple weeks, see what we think, see what's been working, what's not. How would you tweak things? How would you change? What are you learning? What works best for your life kind of thing. Don't try to do someone else's changes. Do your own. Customize it. Have accountability set up beforehand. This is really important. A trusted friend, a life coach, a support group that you tell the truth to, by the way. You tell them the goal, and then you share with them what are the small daily changes that you want to start practicing. And let them know when you've dropped the ball, too. Don't hide that. Nothing healthy happens in isolation. Usually what happens is a reversion to our old habits. We go back to those old habits for comfort and to get back in our damn box where we're safe but miserable. Accountability makes it harder to climb back in the hole. Loving accountability, not judgment. You know who those people are, and maybe just one person, and that's cool. Set up your accountability so people can check in with you and you can share your successes and share how you dropped the ball and you feel bad about that. You can get back on the horse. So you have your plan, you have your daily changes you're going to practice and experiment with, and then you're going to have people love you through it. So what do you need to adhere to in order to not just make this happen? We can all start out gung-ho with lots of adrenaline, right? And then a couple weeks later, we fizzle out. I'm talking about what do we need to adhere to maintain. This is all long game stuff. We need endurance more than we need passion, I think. Be proactive. We can't change our lives by letting it just happen to us. We have to set time aside to think, to realize, to dream, and to get real. We have to take charge of what we want and what's within our control, which is our behavior and how we see our behavior. Next, you want to be aware of what you already do that doesn't work or that feels like it's out of alignment with your goal. Maybe you want to be healthier, but the mindless snacking or impulsive spending on coffees and snacks is not only hurting your health, but hurting your bank account a little bit over time. They're not big dollar amounts, so you don't think they're going to hurt. Maybe the Target splurge or the drive-through visits. Think about what you already do that you're starting to feel a little yucky about. This is not to shame yourself. It's just to, in a neutral way, just say, wow, that's interesting. Look at that. I've been doing that for a while, and that's not really in alignment with where I want to be, so that might be something I want to change. Do you hear my languaging here? Want to might be very positive and also very neutral, because that makes it feel more possible. The next thing we need to do is we really need to be intentional. Are we ready? Are we committed? Do we love ourselves enough to not sabotage this? Is it a good time for us to be making these changes? Sometimes it helps to think, what if I don't? Be intentional. Own the choice. Own the choice to change and the small changes you need to start doing. Next, embrace your resistance. Don't try to not be afraid or not be resistant or not be frustrated. Embrace it. Accept it. Yeah, you and me and everyone else. Not everybody wants to get out of bed at 6 a.m. and go for a run. Not everyone wants to turn down the French fries or the pizza. Not everyone doesn't want to just go splurge every once in a while. It's okay. It can be and. I don't feel like doing it today, and I'm going to do it anyway. Because I really want that end goal. And there's going to be days where it's going to be easier. There's going to be days where it's going to be harder. The point is I keep at it, and I keep at it, and I keep at it, and I make it happen. This is harder when you hit what I call the middle, where you've been at it for a while, don't see a lot of fruit yet, and you're tired. Get back in there, keep at it, keep doing it. And then tell yourself things like, this is just an experiment. I'm going to see how this goes. If this doesn't work 3 months from now, I can change it. I can tweak it. Let me see what plays out. Let me learn from this. Let me think about it. That's big because if we tell ourselves this is an experiment and not a prison sentence, I think our mindset is going to shift a little bit into seeing it as more doable. And finally, got to work on our patience. There aren't any quick fixes that we're talking about here. There's no instant gratification. Try to get your instant gratification in other healthy ways. But keep at this. Know that this is creating an ice sculpture. You're climbing a mountain. It's going to take a while. So don't focus on the outcome too much, except for I would like to reach that goal. But don't focus on, oh my gosh, I've only lost a half a pound. No. Take your eyes off that. Put your eyes back on what are the small things I'm going to do today. And it's really going to feel good doing those. One thing I think is really important is to just grab the experiential data. Just do it. Just do it and see. See what happens. And keep reminding yourself why you're making these changes. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier. I want to have more money. I want to buy that house. I want to have healthier relationships. And I can do these manageable steps. I can do these things today. And I can feel good about making efforts towards where I want to be. I heard a coach say years ago, 5 years are going to go by no matter what, if you're lucky to have them. What do you want to do with that? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? So we can do same old stuff that we're doing, But if we want to be somewhere different 5 years from now, then we need to make some changes. And even if you made a grand gesture and moved across the country, how is that going to matter if when you get there, you bring who you are? Someone who maybe can't save money, someone who maybe doesn't take care of their health, someone who maybe doesn't work on their behaviors. You're not going to have a good relationship with yourself and others. So it's not just the big things, the big changes that we do. They're important. But learning self-discipline and practicing self-discipline helps us really make goals achievable for ourselves, which I think deep down is a game changer. Okay, so it's time to check in with ourselves, right? So if you're not driving or walking or otherwise unable, try to take a few moments and jot down even just bullet point answers to the following questions or thought provokers. We're just raising awareness. Just see what comes up. There's no right or wrong here. You're just going within for a moment. Ready? Number 1. If I think about the concept of changing, I feel. If I think about the concept of changing, I feel. Number 2, in the past, I know I have examples of changing habits that help me get to where I am today. One of those was, and as I look back, I'm pretty proud of myself because and number 3, one of the first goals I would love to tackle is, if I imagine breaking that down into monthly parts, then weekly, then that would mean every day I would. So what came up for you there? Any surprises? Or are these things you've already kind of been thinking about? Whatever comes up is what's meant to come up, I think. And I have these in a PDF in the bonus download in your newsletter, so you can check in with it later too and maybe do some journaling around that. Here are some things that over the years I've walked through with clients and what I've experienced, both with myself and with them, is that you will feel better if you start making small changes. You'll be more in reality, because here's the gig. At the end of the day, it's the pennies that add up. At the end of the day, it's our daily habits that make us better people. Somewhere we know that. Somewhere we also forget that, I think. It's going to increase your self-trust first and foremost, and your self-respect. And therefore, I think your self-confidence is also going to go up. You're going to feel a lot more grounded. I think you're also going to begin to feel more hopeful because you see and feel the progress. And it's real. It's bought and paid for, remember? You learned as you went, and it was real, and you had feelings about it. And you got frustrated, and yet you got back up the next morning and you worked out again, and you felt good about that. When things are easy, I don't think they're as meaningful when we attain something, when we achieve something. If it's too easy, we may want it to be easy, but if it is easy, it doesn't feel like it was worth it. We may pretend we want things handed to us, but I don't think we really do. I think you're going to have less anxiety and depressive feelings because I think you're not going to be fighting yourself anymore. I think alignment brings its own kind of peace. we are more at peace with who we really are and who we really want to become. I don't think anything is put on our heart for no reason. I just don't believe that. I think what is put on our heart is congruent with who we really are. Starting small isn't as traumatic either, because you're slowly stretching your box so gradually that you won't even notice it over time. Maybe until someone mentions it, or you notice differences between the old you and the new you. So you prove it to yourself that you can do that. And like we've talked about before, guess what that does? That starts opening the doors to wanting to do even better and badder changes. Empowerment comes from doing. You're going to keep wanting to widen your experience, and you're going to want to have more and better for yourself. And you have the experience to rest upon, because experiential data doesn't lie. It's real. It's reality. If you can do that, you can do more. And finally, I think you're going to feel so much more responsible because you're increasing your self-discipline. You can rely on yourself. There's a lot less sabotaging. There's more maturity, and I think a lot less chaos in your life and in your future. You're going to really just have better boundaries everywhere. And I think you're going to become more and more proactive and focused. So today we talked about how even though we may not see it yet, it's all the tiny choices that we have made every day that have brought us to where we are today, for better or for worse. And so therefore, it's the intentional, healthy, small choices that we can begin to make today that will add up over time and help us reach our goals. Tiny choices create big changes if we're diligent and determined and open to experimentation and just keep showing up and doing it. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you stay healthy and grounded and aware. Hold on to hope. Focus on the good in yourself and others this week. If you don't get the newsletter, go to ownitpowercast.com. Hit the show notes. You can sign up there. Newsletter comes out every Tuesday. All right, so pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.